Boy, it's up here on about 15 lines from the top of 54b. 15 lines from the top, 54b. Do you have Friday that you blow all those blasts do you have the 48 blasts on Erev Shabbos on every year? You have that on when Friday, for the Friday of Sukkot. Let's translate it that way. The Friday of Sukkot, do you have every year 48 blasts on that Friday? Mi'isa b'chol shana, is there every year you have that 48 blasts? Zimnin d'lemishkachas sometimes you don't have it because sometimes the first day of Sukkot, which is Yom Tov, and you don't do a lot of those blasts. The Yom Tov falls on Yom Tov falls on Erev Shabbos. You don't do a lot of those blasts because those blasts are the Niso Chamayim, the water libation blasts, and those blasts were not done on Yom Tov, and they were done during the weekdays, but they were not done on Yom Tov, and therefore you don't have 48. Now, we added all those blasts for you entered this door, you went the Shar Nikner in the bottom, and you went out the base Hamikdash to the mountain. That's called the Shara Tachton, and then you came back in with the water, and you would blow then. And all of those blasts, they were not done on on Yom Tov. Why wasn't it done on Yom Tov? We said already. We mentioned it then about the Gzeira, and there's a lot of instruments that could break, and basically there's a Gzeira, there's a decree against musical instruments. We're afraid you're going to fix it, and basically they did not do those. Even though we did use some, there were blasts that were done even on Yom Tov, but those that connected with the ones that were connected with the Niso Chamayim, we don't do. And so the Gemara says, you see, you don't have it every year. So now the Gemara says that that's not true. The Gemara says, Ki mitla yom tov rishon b'erev Shabbos mitchidach inon. We push it off. So it's not true that when the Friday of Sukkot, you don't have 48 blasts. That's not true, because the Friday of Sukkot never falls on the first day of Yom Tov. It always falls on the intermediate days, which you are allowed to blow the trumpets. And therefore, even if it does fall on the first day, which would be Yom Tov, and you wouldn't be allowed to blow, it's not true. We push off. We mess up the holiday dates by making the month before it an extra day, and it pushes everything off a day. We make sure to do that. My time, why do we do that? Then Yom Kippurim, because if the Friday of Sukkot is on the first day of the Friday is the first day of Sukkot. The first day falls on a Friday, so that means that Yom Kippur, Emasavi, when would Yom Kippur be? It would be on Sunday. There's always 4 days in between Sukkot, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. It's connected the Yud Ke Vav Ke. So you have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday would be the 4 days, and then you have Erev Shabbos would be the first day of Sukkot. So so it comes out that if Yom Kippur, if Sukkot is on a Friday, that means Yom Kippur fell on a Sunday, and that's a big problem. It's on a Sunday. Why is it a big problem for Yom Kippur to fall on a Sunday? So the Gemara says there's 2 reasons. The Gemara gives 2 reasons in Tractate Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara says, and Rashi brings it. He doesn't explain it. He says Yarkaya in Messiah. 2 reasons. Why can't Yom Kippur be on a Sunday? That never falls out on a Sunday in our calendar. But even when it could fall out on a Sunday, when they would go based on the new moon, and of course it's possible for it to fall out on a Sunday, what they would do would be they would not allow the witnesses to testify, and they would push off make the month of Elul, instead of 29 days, it would make it 30 days, and ultimately they'd be able to push it off in order to push off Yom Kippur. Now, what are the 2 reasons? So Yarkaya means vegetables, the Yerakos, like Yarkaya. and the Messiah means those that passed away. And basically, the Chachamim never wanted that, even though we do celebrate 2 days Yom Tov here outside of Eretz Yisrael, but the rabbis tried not to have 2 days of holiday in a row because number one, for food purposes, because the food they didn't have refrigeration, and therefore the food would get moldy or wilt, or somehow not be edible. And second of all, a dead body, a person who passes away, they if they wouldn't bury for 2 days, it's a very long time, and the body would decompose, and so they tried to always have it just 1 day Yom Tov. So because of that, now Yom Kippur, it's not only about Yom Kippur. Keep in mind, if Yom Kippur falls on a Sunday, it ends up that Rosh Hashanah, the other holidays as well, end up on a Shabbos and a Sunday, Sukkot and so on. So if I had a calendar comes out, let's just pull up my calendar here. Oh, so Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's an old calendar. Oh, October 2024. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, fine. So the first day of Rosh Hashanah was a Thursday. The first day of Sukkot is a Thursday. Yom Kippur is, I don't know if that makes a difference. So if Yom Kippur was on a Shabbos this year, past year. If Yom Kippur would have been on a Friday, then, or on a Sunday, excuse me. If Yom Kippur would have been on a Sunday, so everything would be pushed off. So you'd have Rosh Hashanah on a Friday, and then you'd have Shabbos next to it. Yeah, that's the meaning. Rosh Hashanah would be then on a Friday, and it would be Friday and Shabbos. And Sukkot would then be, the first day of Sukkot would be a Friday. So it would be a Friday and a Shabbos. And you'd have the same thing with Shmini Atzeres, would be Shmini Atzeres and Shabbos. So it would be 2 days in a row of Yom Tov, numerous issues. So basically, the rabbis made sure that Yom Kippur doesn't fall on a Sunday, and that also makes that the other holidays don't have 2 days in a row as well. So you don't have Shabbos and Yom Kippur together, and you don't have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur or Sukkot and Yom Kippur together either. So it actually works it out perfectly. So they make sure to always push it off. And because of that, it ends up that Sukkot never starts on a Friday. And if Sukkot never starts on a Friday, you never have this issue of not having of not being able to blow the 48 blasts because it's Yom Tov, because Sukkot starts on a Friday and it's Yom Tov and you can't blow all those blasts. That's not an issue. The Friday of Sukkot always falls on the intermediate days. It never falls on the first day. That's the Gemara's claim, and that's where and that leads us to the next question, really. So the Gemara says, really? Is that true that Yom Kippur you always push off? And the Gemara brings two proofs, and this is what we were in the middle of discussing. There's two proofs the Gemara brings that you do not push off Yom Kippur, even if it falls on a Sunday. And one is a Mishnah in Shabbos. The Mishnah says, didn't we learn in a Mishnah, Chel Be Shabbos Kraven B'Yom Kippurim, that the Mishnah says that the chalev, which is the fats, but it really refers to the carbon tamid, and the carbon tamid was a burnt offering, and it doesn't just mean the fats, it means all the limbs, because the entire animal was burned. So Rashi mentions that the Chel Be Shabbos it refers to the all of the entire carbon when it talks about the chalavim. But basically, the limbs of the carbon tamid, of the daily sacrifice that was brought in the afternoon of Shabbos. So would you be allowed to bring those? Would you be allowed to burn those limbs on Yom Kippur? Because Yom Kippur fell on a Sunday that year. And the Mishnah says, this is one opinion there. It's Rabbi Yishmael. Shmuel says that you could burn the limbs of the sacrifice that was brought on Shabbos. It's the second sacrifice, the afternoon sacrifice, and that would be brought on Shabbos, but very possible that the limbs weren't finished being brought up on the altar, and you want to bring them up on the altar on Yom Kippur and burn them. And the halacha is that they are allowed to be burned on Yom Kippur. This is Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. It doesn't work the opposite way. If Yom Kippur was on a Friday and you had fats of Yom Kippur, would they be allowed to be burned on Shabbos? No. But if the fats of Shabbos being holier than Yom Kippur, according to Rabbi Yishmael, Shabbos is holier than Yom Kippur, and therefore, so Yom Kippur falls on a Saturday night, so the fats that were, or the limbs that were from that sacrifice would be allowed to be burned on the Yom Kippur. They're fats of Shabbos, and they're allowed to be burned on Yom Kippur because Yom Kippur is less strict than Shabbos. Now, even though you can't eat, which is true on Yom Kippur, but the severity of the laws on Shabbos are more severe than on Yom Kippur. Now, the Gemara, that's one proof that Yom Kippur could fall on a Sunday, because you see this case, the limbs of Shabbos being brought on Sunday. Now, the Gemara brings another proof that Yom Kippur could fall on a Sunday. I was learning in the base medrash of Rav in Babylon, and Havi Amri, and they said over there, Hadatanya, that it says in a brisa, Yom HaKippur Shchol Yosef Shabbos. There's a Yom Kippur that falls on a Friday, so then there's laws about that. And then there's Yom Kippur that falls on a Saturday night, a Sunday. There's laws about that. What's the laws of Yom Kippur that falls on a Friday? They didn't do the 6 blasts. And seemingly, why wouldn't they do the 6 blasts? Well, the blasts, it's Yom Kippur, and it's a Friday. So the reason to do those blasts would be seemingly to prepare people for to stop working. Now, in truth, I mean, you're not really doing much work. You're not doing anything on Yom Kippur, and you're not doing anything on Shabbos, right? You can't do any work on either day. So blowing those blasts, the 6 blasts on a Friday, makes sense. They wouldn't blow them. You don't blow those blasts. You don't have to tell people to stop working. They're not working. It's Yom Kippur. The Yom Kippur is on Friday. Shabbos is coming. You don't have to do the blast. They didn't do the blast. What happens? Yom Kippur falls on a Sunday. So now the question is, do you do Havdalah? And surprisingly, Rashi uses the term do you do Havdalah al hakois? The commentaries question if there must be a mistake there. The al hakois, it's Yom Kippur is on Sunday. It's Yom Kippur. So the commentaries understand. They see the other Rashis mentioned that doesn't mean on a kois. It means to say it. Do you say Havdalah in you say the words Hamabdil ben kodesh lekodesh? Now, what is Havdalah? Havdalah is separating from holy to less holy, either to mundane, to a weekday. When do we make Havdalah? From Shabbos to a weekday. What about from Shabbos to Yom Tov? We also make a Havdalah, a little different. It's make a separation between holy, extra holy, to less holy. Yom Tov is less holy than Shabbos, and that's why Shabbos, we're not even allowed to light a fire. And so Motzei Shabbos, when we make Havdalah, we do a fire. And the same thing is the besamim, the smell. Why do we do besamim on Shabbos? After Shabbos is over, we smell besamim. We don't do that after Yom Tov is over. The smelling besamim, we lost the big soul. We lost the soul. Now, the question, of course, is, so when Shabbos goes into Yom Tov, why don't you do besamim? It's less holy. You lost your Shabbos soul if Yom Tov is less holy. It's an interesting question, but basically Shabbos is holier than Yom Tov, and you make Havdalah. You recite Havdalah when you go from Shabbos, from extra holy to less holy. We say thank you Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, who gave us the Shabbos and so on, and separated Mavdil bein Kodesh l'choil, or for Yom Tov, it's bein Kodesh l'kodesh. He separates, Hashem separates between holy and holy, mean extra holy and less holy. Something that's the same level of holiness. And same rules, you wouldn't do Havdalah. So you wouldn't say a Mavdil bein Kodesh l'kodesh. So that would be the second half of this statement of the Brisa. The first half was talking about if Yom Kippur falls on a Friday. And when it falls on a Friday, you don't blow the blasts. And when it falls on a Motzei Shabbos, which means a Sunday, you don't make Havdalah. You don't say Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'Kodesh. You do that when Yom Tov falls on a Sunday, but you don't do that when a Yom Kippur falls on a Sunday. And the reason would be a little different than the previous Mishnah. The point here would be that Yom Kippur and Shabbos are equal. The previous Mishnah emphasized that the Shabbos is more strict than Yom Kippur, and therefore you could even burn the fats of Shabbos on Yom Kippur. That was the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Here, we're seeing another understanding that it's really equal. And this seems to be the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva holds Shabbos and Yom Kippur are considered equal, and therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, think about it. According to Rabbi Akiva, the fats of Shabbos that were not finished burning or were not burned, would you be allowed to burn them on Yom Kippur? Rabbi Yishmael says yes. Yom Kippur is less holy. Rabbi Akiva would say no, because it's equal holiness, and equal holiness you wouldn't be allowed to burn one on the other. Again, that's not really the topic here. The main point that we are bringing here is, can Yom Kippur fall on a Sunday? And the answer is, we see here two places. Yes, it could fall on a Sunday because we talked about the fats, the burning them on the altar on Yom Kippur on a Sunday, and we talked about making Havdalah when Yom Kippur falls on a Sunday. So we see that you could have Yom Kippur on a Sunday, contrary to what we said in the previous Gemara, which messes up a little of the dialogue. It messes things up. Now we got to reevaluate the things unless we find an answer. But because once you mess one point up, then it messes the other answer up, and then it messes the previous answer up. So we're sort of like we just got ourselves a little stuck over here by finding sources that you can have a Yom Kippur on a Sunday, which means that you can have Sukkot, the first day of Sukkot, fall on a Friday. And if you can have the first day of Sukkot fall on a Friday, that means that the case in the Mishnah is not a every year type of case. And if that's so, that it's not an every year type of case, then the question is, why didn't the Mishnah pick other cases that don't apply every year, but you actually have more blowings, like 51 blows or 57 blows, even though they don't go every year? Why did the Mishnah pick those cases? Yes, Dub.
I have a unrelated question. Why is the word for meat fat chalev, and the word for milk is chalev?
That is above my pay grade. I don't know. That's you need an expert. I don't know what. I don't even know what field. Literature. Some type of who writes the dictionaries. I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. Okay, so the Gemara answers here. Well, but before the Gemara answers, there's one more line I have to read.
I think Jeffrey has an answer.
Oh, Jeffrey, you want to say something?
The computer. So I think it's all a metaphor. Okay, we also talk about the chalev of grain.
That's true.
So it's all a metaphor.
Chalev kilyos schita.
Right. In the Torah. Right, in the poems. So it's a metaphor, and there's a difference between two different kinds of fat. Chalev is white fat,
Shuman, yeah.
And the other fat, and we don't eat it now either, and
Right.
and the yellow fat is what we do eat. So it's a
Oh,
different color.
the chela fat is whiter than the shuman.
I think so, but it's different. It's different color. It's a
Oh,
different color.
it's a different color.
Maybe I'm mixing it up, but I think that's
Uh-huh.
the analogy. The analogy is that the best of something is the
The
chela.
chela, that's true,
Okay.
right?
But we don't even eat it now in terms of the animals. But the metaphor is that the best of the grain and the best of the milk is also that same word, chalab. And it maybe didn't mean milk originally first, right? Maybe it meant like the full animal milk or something like that, unprocessed milk or something like that.
I'm just asking Google.
Oh, yeah.
The Gavon shel chelev, the Gavon shel shuman. Let's just see if it pulls up here.
Yeah.
The color. No, I don't see much here. All right. Well, is that like a halachic way of checking out the difference between the two fats? Like you could tell, is it brought in a halacha? Is that just your own understanding that there's a different color, or is that something that you've seen written?
No, it's my understanding.
Uh-huh.
I must have read something about that. We know how to distinguish one from the other, but because we don't eat it now.
Yeah, it's like a specialized field. It's called the trabering, where they cut out the fats. But nowadays they don't even deal with it. They just sell it to McDonald's. If they cut out a much bigger piece, they don't go around cutting in and out. They just
they do. I think in Israel they still
in Israel, in Israel they do, yeah. Anyway, all right. So according to what you're saying, chalav might have some connection to the color white, if that's true. And then you have the white fats and the white milk. Anyway, all right, very interesting. Now, getting back to the Gemara. So the Gemara says, so we see that there is a debate over here about Yom Kippur being equal to Shabbos. And the end of this discussion about this brisa, Zera is talking about, he was in Bavel, and they were talking about the brisa, and they mentioned over there that this brisa everyone agrees with, that there's no argument about blowing the blasts when Yom Kippur is on a Friday. You don't blow the blasts. When Sunday is Yom Kippur, you don't say Hamavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Everyone agrees with that. Maybe you could Rabbi Yishmael holds you could burn the fats from Shabbos to Yom Kippur, but you don't do Hamavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Everyone agrees. It's Divrei HaKorli. In Bavel, they said this is these two laws everyone agrees with. The previous Mishnah is another story, but these two laws everyone agrees with. Divrei HaKorl, everyone agrees that that's the law. But he slikas lahasa. But when I went up to Eretz Yisrael, ashkachte Rabbi Yehuda Breder Rav Shimon ben Pazi Yosef Kamar Rebbe Kivahi. When I went to Eretz Yisrael, they said no. Rabbi Yishmael is that Mishnah over there, and he holds there's a difference between Yom Kippur and Shabbos. And Rabbi Akiva is the author of this brisa, and this brisa is following Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva holds that Shabbos and Yom Kippur are equal, and therefore you have these laws of Motzei Shabbos, you don't do Havdalah, and that Yom Kippur that falls on a Yom Kippur that falls on a Friday, you don't blow the trumpets. Now, the thing is, what would Rabbi Akiva, according to this, that this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion, what would Rabbi Yishmael actually hold? So Rabbi Yishmael would have an issue with the blowing of the trumpets, because he would say that blowing the trumpets, there's reason to blow the trumpets on a Friday leading into Shabbos, because what will happen is people will know if you do that, it'll be beneficial to people, that if Yom Kippur ever falls on a Sunday, they're going to know that you're allowed to burn the chalavim of Shabbos on Yom Kippur on Sunday. So in other words, what benefit is there by blowing the trumpets on this Shabbos that falls that Yom Kippur falls on a Friday and it's followed by a Shabbos, why would you blow the trumpets on that Yom Kippur? The reason would be that it would teach people, there would be a benefit according to Rabbi Yishmael. So according to Rabbi Yishmael, you should do it. And that the Brisa says you don't do it, this is Rabbi Akiva. Again, it's a question if Rabbi Yishmael really holds that way or not, because there's another reason why maybe there's no need to blow the trumpets, because Kohanim's reasonheim, the Kohanim are on top of things, and they're not going to make this mistake. But they're experts in there. The Kohanim were pros. So there is a debate between the Babylonians and the Eretz Yisrael if this is Ledivrei HaKoil, if everyone agrees with this, or this is an argument between this price. There might be an issue with one of the statements here, and that Rabbi Yishmael maybe would disagree with. But in any event, it really does not apply to what we're learning. What we're learning is, we see here that Yom Kippur could fall on a Sunday. So the Gemara's answer to that question, and is haloi kasha, ha rabbanon, ha achirim. That there's a difference between the rabbis in Reb Meir, achirim. That the rabbis are what we said, and that's what our Mishnah goes like. That the rabbis hold that it's impossible for Yom Kippur to fall on a Sunday, and therefore our Mishnah mentions that on a Friday of Sukkot, you have 48 blasts. Guess what? That works. It's true. You always have on a Friday of Sukkot 48 blasts, because Friday of Sukkot will never be the first day of Sukkot. You know why? Because Yom Kippur never falls on a Sunday. And since Yom Kippur can't fall on a Sunday, that means that first day of Sukkot can't be on a Friday. And that means that there's always 48 blasts. And the Mishnah's case is a case that happens every year. Every year, the Friday of Sukkot is definitely going to have 48 blasts. So the Mishnah's case was a blanket rule that it always happens. And there are some cases where you can have more than 48, but those cases are rare. They don't happen every year. They're rare occurrences. Erev Pesach falls on a certain day, right? Those are Erev Pesach that falls on a Shabbos. These are rare. That's a rare occurrence. Erev Pesach that falls on a Shabbos. Now, although we've had it a few times in the last few years, but we've had 20 years go by without such an occurrence, Okay, now the Gemara, so now Acherim, Reb Meir holds that you could have Yom Kippur falling on a Sunday, and that's why these Brisas in the Mishnah mention such a thing. That's following Reb Meir's view. That's not the rabbi's opinion. Acherim, that's Acherim the Tani, because we have a brisa. Acherim says, which is literally means others say, and it's referring to Rameir. Ein bein atzeres latzeres. You don't have one Shavuos after another. Between one Shavuos to the next. Bein ben Rosh Hashanah. You don't have between the first 1 year Rosh Hashanah and the next year Rosh Hashanah. Ella arba yom levad. You only have 4 days. That there's always it's a set amount, and if it's a leap year, vim ha'is Hashanah muberes chamisha. You'd have five days between the 1 year. Then basically, according to Reb Meir, you have your life is very organized. Everything is very set. So what month is 1 month is 30 days, 1 month 29, 30, 29, 30, 20. Everything goes in order, and everything is in order. And then you have the leap years, and those the leap years you have an extra month of 29 days. And so what ends up happening is, if you have 354 days in a year, because you have 6 months of 30 days, 180, and 6 months of 29 days would be 174. So you have 180, 174. You have 354 days. 354 days of a regular year. You'll have, if you want to know what day the next year is going to start on, all you have to do is see what the remainder is from 7. You divide 354 by 7. And you see you have a remainder of 4, because 354 divided by 7 times 5 is 35. So 7 times 50 would be 350. And you have a remainder of 4. That's 4 days difference. And then in a leap year, you have another 29 days, which is divided by 7 with a remainder of 1. And so therefore, you have 5-day difference on a leap year. And so what ends up happening is, according to Reb Meir, because it's so set, you don't switch things around. So that's it. It falls whatever day it falls on. Okay, so that's the end of that piece. The Gemara now asks a question on Ravacha. So it's the end of that little piece, with discussing the whatchamacallit, the numbers of the Mishnah and so on. But now we go back to the statement of Ravacha. Ravacha had a statement before. He had brought a teaching of a brisa that he understood to mean that every musaf gets its own blowings, and what comes out is that if you have a Shabbos, that's Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos, that's Rosh Hashanah, Shabbos, that's you have blowings for each of these each of these ceremonies or sacrifices. You would have blowings, and the blowings are connected to the shir, to the song that was sang when these blowings were done. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, they asked the Bnei Yeshiva, the student scholars asked a contradiction, and they're going to prove Ravacha wrong, that it can't be that you blow the trumpets double on these when you have double musafs. Rosh Chodesh shechol liyos b'Shabbos. What happens when Rosh Chodesh falls on a Shabbos? So Rosh Chodesh falls on a Shabbos. Shir shel Rosh Chodesh doiche shir shel Shabbos. The song of Rosh Chodesh, the song of Rosh Chodesh, it pushes off the song of Shabbos. That's what the Gemara understands, that Rosh Chodesh is going to push off the song of Shabbos. V'i Isa, and if it's true that Ravacha is correct, that each of the musafs have their own blowings, the blowings were done when they did the song. And if you're not going to do one of the songs, then seemingly you're not going to do the blowing. So the Gemara says, if it's so, like Ravacha had said, Lema de Shabbos, Velema de Rosh Chodesh, you should do both songs because you're doing both blowings, and the blowing is connected to the songs. So why are you pushing off the Shabbos song? Seemingly, both songs should be done because you're going to do both blowings. Ravacha is coming up with this teaching that you do both blowings, so do both songs. You're doing you have the two musafs, and why would one push off the other? If there's some rule that only you do one, it becomes a hybrid, fine. But he says no, it's not a hybrid. You do each one gets their own blowing. Oh, they get their own blowing. Let them have they should have their own song. So Amar Rav Safra says, no, doesn't mean that you push off the Shabbos and it doesn't get a song. My doicha l'kadem just means that which one do you do first? Which one do you do first? Do you do the shir of the Shabbos first, or the shir of Rosh Chodesh? And the law is, this is what the brisa that they brought, that the student scholars brought to teach, to show about that you push off that you push off the Shabbos in order to have the shir of Rosh Chodesh. No, it doesn't mean push it off. It means that which one do you do first? You don't push the other one away. You prioritize. Which one do you prioritize? You prioritize the Rosh Chodesh. So the Gemara asks, "V'amai, why is that? Tadir v'sheinai tadir kaidem." When you have something that's more common, you have something that's less common, you always do the thing that's more common. I'll give you an example. When Rosh Chodesh Tevis, which is falls on or Shabbos Chanukah, even without Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos Chanukah. You have Shabbos Chanukah. So what do you lane? What do you read in the Torah? So you read in the Torah, you read the regular Torah reading, and then afterwards you read for Chanukah. What about Rosh Chodesh Shabbos when it falls on Shabbos? Rosh Chodesh Tevis on Chanukah. If there's a Shabbos Rosh Chodesh on Hanukkah. So then you have three things you got to read: the weekly Torah portion, the Rosh Chodesh, and the Hanukkah. So what do you do then? So you do the weekly Torah portion. Then you do Rosh Chodesh, because Rosh Chodesh is 18 days a year. And then you do Hanukkah, which is 8 days a year. So you got the what's more common, what's more usual. So you do it in that order. It's interesting because then the Haftarah doesn't really, the Haftarah is another story. The Haftarah, which one would you think you should do? That would sound like maybe you should do the Shabbos Haftarah. The Haftarah is another story. The commentaries, the Paiskim talk about it. What's the reason that you do the Hanukkah Haftarah? So either because Persume Nisa, I think it's brought down that because of Persume Nisa for Hanukkah, we do, sometimes that pushes off it pushes off the other ideas that that's one of the reasons that's brought down. That's Persume. I think there's another reason there, but anyway, so that's the concept of Tadir. Here also you have the concept of Tadir, and the Gemara is asking, shouldn't Shabbos override? Should be prioritized over Rosh Chodesh, and so therefore the song of Shabbos should be first. So the Gemara says, this is really like a similar to like what we said about Hanukkah, that there's a concept of Persume Nisa, that by Rosh Chodesh you have a concept of showing the people that the Beis Din was Makadesh the Chodesh without any question, and we want to publicize that. So therefore, you do the Rosh Chodesh first, faster than you prioritized over the Shabbos. There's a reason for it. Tadir, you're right. In a normal circumstances, you do what's first. Now, however, when it comes to an issue that you need to publicize, so that it overrides the concept of Tadir. The Gemara says, the high Hakera of Dinon, do we do this as a way of telling people that, in other words, we blow we sing the song of Rosh Chodesh first because of a heker to publicize this and make it recognizable that Beis Din established this as a new month. Kerach Risa Beinon, we do a different Hakero. There's something else we do. We did not, because it's taught in it was taught in a Mishnah. Chel Beit Tamid Shel Shachar Nitanin Mechatzi Kevesh Ulamato B'Mizrach. It talks about here. This is a Mishnah that deals with the fats, also about the not exactly the fats. Actually, here's where Rashi mentions it, that the fats, when we talk about the fats of the daily sacrifice, we don't really mean the fats. We mean the all the limbs of the, because it's a burnt offering. So it's the limbs are, where do you place them? Basically, the kohanim would bring them to the ramp, and then another kohen would bring them onto the altar. So the one kohen brought it to the ramp. Where would they put them on the ramp? So they would put them down. So the Mishnah here tells us that there are different korbanos. There's the Tamid Shel Shachar, was put Nitanin Mechatzi Kevesh Ulamata B'Mizrach, on the bottom half of the ramp towards the east. The Shal Musafin on the Musafs, all the different types of Musafs besides Rosh Chodesh. All the other Musafs, they would put Nitanin Mechatzi Kevesh Ulamata B'Mayrav. They would put it on the bottom on the west, which is towards the Holy of Holies. That was on the west side, the bottom part of the ramp, going up to the altar, towards on the west side, which means towards the Holy of Holies, and basically this way they would know what is the morning sacrifice and what is the Musaf sacrifice, because the first sacrifice that's supposed to be brought is the morning sacrifice. So therefore, if you divide them up, you'll be able to know which one is which. So which one would they know to take? They would always make sure to take the one that's on the east side, because that one was supposed to go first, and the Musaf would be placed on the west side. Now, the Shel Rosh Chodesh, but the Rosh Chodesh, this is the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. No. Nitanin Tachas Karkev HaMizbeach Ulamata, that was placed under the Karkev and below, which the wording sounds like it's a low place, but it actually means it's higher. It's the upper half of the ramp, and it's just below the Kharkiv. But the Kharkiv was pretty high up. It was 6 out of 9 amos. It was at the 6 amma mark, the 6 cubit mark from the 9 amos altar. So this would be placed right under it, but it would be basically on the upper half of the ramp. So what was the reason? Why would you put the Rosh Chodesh above the other sacrifices? This is the sacrifice that was brought as the additional sacrifice called the Musaf, which we just said Musaf, and the Musaf, it was in place of the carbon. They used to bring a carbon, and of course in the Musafs you always read about the sacrifice. The Musaf sacrifices always had 7 sheep and the lambs and the ayil ram. So the Musaf sacrifice that was placed above the other sacrifices, higher up on the ramp, and the Ba'amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Rebbe says, so what's the reason for this? To show, to make an announcement that Rosh Chodesh was established by Bezdin at the right time. No one should question it. And so we see that they make a heker, an emphasis that people need to know, and they do it. They people would know that it's Rosh Chodesh, that the rabbis established Rosh Chodesh. So the question is, so why do we have to make this other heker? That, in other words, why would you have to do the song of Rosh Chodesh before the Shabbos song? Just because you want to make a heker and translate the brisa that way, maybe it means that it pushes it off completely, and it's not just to make a heker. Why would you need 2 hekers? The Gemara says no. Trei hekeru avdina, we do 2. We do 2 hekers, and basically, the way we translated the previous brisa would be that which one is the priority. Which song is the priority? We do the Rosh Chodesh song first. Why do we do the Rosh Chodesh song first? Because we want to make a heker, a statement. We want to make a statement that Rosh Chodesh was established in its time, and we make 2 statements. You're right. We make another statement as well, but that's also true. Both are important. We put the limbs above the other limbs on the ramp before they get brought to the altar, and we make this other statement about the song. Well, we do 2. The chazi, high chazi, the chazi, high chazi. The person who sees this one sees it, and the person who sees that statement sees it. So that's the conclusion of this question. That sort of answers it, but we'll see. There's another question that's going to mess everything up. Yes, David.
It's interesting. This you're saying that the carbon is put at the 6 amma mark of the 9 ammas.
Right below, well, the Kharkiv was at the 6 amma mark. That's where the Kharkiv of the Mizbech, the band around the Mizbech. Yeah.
So that's exactly where the mezuzah is put. It's in the top. It's in the top third, or the bottom of the top third.
Very interesting. Right. The bottom of the top third. Now this is right below the top third. So it's not exact, but what you're saying is that maybe the mezuzah is somehow connected to it's above the Kharkiv. We have to find if there's anything that's above the Kharkiv. This is when right below the Kharkiv. A mezuzah goes right above that mark. So I have to learn Talmud. Maybe that would be another tractate we could consider. It's just you have to, study the Beis Hamikdash stuff and Midos and Talmud. Maybe we'd be able to find something corresponding to the mezuzah perfectly. But yeah, good thinking.
Also, what I was asking before about chalav and chalav.
Yeah,
I looked it up on. I use AI, Microsoft Copilot. So I came up with a whole bunch of things, but the main thing was that it said that chalav is usher, so it's gavura, and chalav is nourishing, like the land of milk and honey. So chalav is chesed.
Uh-huh.
And I went through a whole description of the differences between one and the other, and its connection in Torah and in Kabbalah, and it was very
It
interesting.
sounds like a contradiction to me because it should be the same. It's the same letters.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It says that they have the same letters, but one's asur, one's life-giving nourishment,
Uh-huh.
and it's a paradox. So you can see
Right.
the connection.
Right.
What's
But it is
asur and what's celebrated as something that's good for you.
right. But it does say also kol chelev laHashem. It's prohibited to eat, but it's
Right.
you give the best to
That's,
Hashem. It's called chelev. All right. Anyway,
so that's
whatever.
what, yeah.
Yeah. It's not really the topic here, but anyway, yeah. Thank you for looking into it and bringing it up. Okay, Meisvei. So the Gemara asked one more question over here, and this question is going to knock off Rav Acha. Meisvei, the Bnei Yeshiva, the student scholars asked a question. Did Tani, Rava Bar Shmuel taught, Yochol Keshem Shetoikin al Shabbos B'fnei Atzmai. You might think, Yochol, it might be, or you might think, Keshem Shetoikin al Shabbos B'fnei Atzmai, just like there is blows when Shabbos is on its own. Shabbos is the only sacrifice that of Musaf, just like you blow for a Shabbos that's alone. Vial Reish Chodesh Bifnei Atzmi, and on Reish Chodesh that's alone. So Kach, you might think, Yehiyu Taikin al Kol Musaf umusaf. You should blow on each Musaf, each one when you have a few. In other words, just like you blow on each one on its own. So when you have a few, blow for each of them. Talmud Loimar, the Torah tells us that Uvaroshe Chodshechem, that it says the words, and on your Rosh Chodeshes. And we'll soon see how exactly you see that from the words Uvaroshe Chodshechem. But before we tell you how you see it, we're telling you the law. And the law is that because it says Rosh Chodshechem, it teaches us that you do not blow trumpets for each of the musafs. It's a clear brisa, Rava Bar Shmuel. You don't blow, even though you blow for each of them when they're on their own, but when they're together, you don't blow for each and every one of them. Tiyuvta the Rabbi Acha Tiyuvta. This proves wrong Rabbi Acha. It proves him wrong. So the Gemara now says, and so how do we know Uvaroshe Chodshechem from those words? How does it teach us the law about? How does it teach us the law that you do not blow for each of the musafs, and instead you just blow one? How do you see that? Where do you see the Rosh Chodshechem? On the Rosh Chodeshes you blow. I mean, it doesn't say that you don't blow on when other days fall on Rosh Chodesh, or you have two holidays together, Shabbos and Shabbos and a holiday. You don't blow. How do you see that? Rosh Chodeshem, it just says you blow on Rosh Chodesh. Yes, Jeffrey.
So I see now, because we have the pasuk. This is the pasuk about the chatzotzros that we read in Bahalosva. So it says uyom, just the word yom, right? Simchaschem, and then umoadechem. So it's sort of saying if they come together on the yom, and it only mentions one day, so therefore you just blow because it's all a combination. So whatever the combination is on that day, they are all connected with and it says just yom on a one day. So that must be the reason.
Do you think it means one? You see from there it should be only one blow. I would say maybe each one, even if it's all on one day, you do one. You even if it's all on one day, you do each of them. I don't know. I don't see that. I don't see a proof either way. But I also don't see from Rosh Chodshechem a proof. In other words, they're learning from the words of Rosh Chodshechem. You're learning from Uvayoim. but it doesn't seem like the Gemara is learning it that way. The Gemara has two options over here. Let's see. My Talmud. So what is the way it's learning it? Amar Abaye, Amar Kro. Abaye says the pasuk says of Rosh Chodshechem that it says in the pasuk, this pasuk that Jeffrey just mentioned, Uva Rosh Chodshechem, that you blow the trumpets, and it says on the different holidays and Mayadechem, Rosh Chodshechem, Yom Simchas. So Hukshu Kol Chadoshim Kulam Zeh Lo Zeh. Every Rosh Chodesh you do a standard. There's no changes. What does that mean? That even when Rosh Chodesh falls on a Shabbos, even Rosh Chodesh is Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh falls on a Yom Tov, that's it. Rosh Chodesh is one standard blowing. And that means that you never switch, you never add on to make things different. All Rosh Chodeshes are going to be the same. So that's how he understands it, that it connects all the Rosh Chodeshes, compares all the Rosh Chodeshes. Rosh, instead of, I guess because it could have said of Rosh Chodoshim, I don't know. The pasuk says Rosh Chodshechem, and he understands it that it teaches you the amount of tekiyos always are the same. Now, what could it have said that if it wanted to say do different? I'm not sure. I'm guessing that it could have said over Rosh Chodashim, not Chodshechem. I don't know, but he learns from this pasuk that it means that all the Chodashim are equal, all the Rosh Chodashim. Rav Ashi says Ksiv Chodshechem. It says Chodshechem missing a yud. Uksiv uva Roshei, and it says uva Roshei, which is like plural. Roshei, the heads of, and Chodshechem, it's missing that yud. Normally there would be a yud in between the shin and the chaf. Chodshechem. So it says one is plural, one is like singular. So ve'eza chodesh sheyesh le'shnei roshim haviyomer zeh Rosh Hashanah. Which month is like its two heads? Because it has Rosh Chodesh, and it also it's the head of the month, and it's the head of the year, and it has both two sacrifices of Musaf. The Amar Rachman, and the Torah says Chodshechem in the singular. So there's a Roshei, which is a case that you have two Rosh Chodeshes, meaning two heads, two Roshes, I should say, has two heads. One is the Rosh Chodesh, one is Rosh Hashanah. And it's on the same day, because every Rosh Hashanah, every new year, is also the beginning of the new month of the first month of the year. So it's the beginning of the new month, it's the beginning of the new year, it's the same day. It wears two hats. So that day of Rosh is what the word Uva Rosh is referring to. It's referring to that Rosh Chodesh because it says plural. So it's referring to that Rosh Chodesh, and then it says Rosh Chodshechem singular. So what is it telling you? That that it's supposed to be one, that you blow once. We're talking about blowing. The verse is talking about the blowing, and it uses the singular, teaches you that you only blow one musaf blowing, not for each musaf. So we've now proven Rav Acha wrong. And now the Gemara brings another kasha on Rav Acha. The Oid. And another kasha on Rav Acha, Tanya, it was taught in a brisa. B'choyloi shel moyed, on chola moyed sukkis, barishoin, on the first day, mo hoyu oimrim, what would the Leviim say for the song of the Musaf? Which means that the daily songs were saying for the regular, even though it's Yom Tov or it's Chol HaMoed, you would, even though it's Chol HaMoed, you sing for the regular sacrifice, the daily sacrifice, you would sing the regular song. But for the Musaf sacrifice on Chol HaMoed Sukkos, you would sing, what would they sing? So the Brisa says, this is a Brisa, it says, Havu Lashem B'nei Elim. they would say this, they would sing this song of chapter 29 of Tehillim, right? Kol Hashem Alamayim, that whole song, and it hints to the Nisuch Hamayim, Kol Hashem Alamayim. So they would sing that on the first day of Chol HaMoed Sukkos. That was the song. B'sheni Ma Hayuayim. What would they sing on the second day? V'la Rasha Amar Elokim. They would say that the song that mentions what is the Rasha doing, speaking my holy things. Why is he mentioning my chukim, my statutes? And they would say that refers to people who don't do tshuva and so on. And on the third day, b'shlishi mahoyu oimrim, what would they say? Mi yakum li im mireim. And this was specifically connected to the tsaras that the Yidden suffered under the hands of Persia, Greeks, the Romans, and that we still celebrate with Hashem, even though we're suffering. Now, Retiree on Wednesday of Chol HaMoed, the fourth day, not the fourth day of Chol HaMoed, whatever day of the week it is. Ma Hayuayim, what would they say? Binu bayarim ba'am. Let them understand, the bayarim, the simple ones, let them understand. And it's about the people who don't take meiser and so on. So they should understand about Hashem, how important it is, the greatness of Hashem. And they should give the gifts to the poor and so on. And so that would be the fourth song. V'chamishi, on the fifth day of Chol HaMoed Sukkos, Ma Hayu Oimrim, what would they say? Hasiroisi Misevel Shechmai. There's psukim over there about nichum, about comfort, and Hashem saves us and protects us. Anyway, so that's on the fifth day. And then the sixth day, which is Hoshana Rabbah, B'shishi, Ma Hayu Oimrim, what would they say? Yimoitu, Kol Moistei, Aretz, and that pasuk is also talking about Aniyim, that Tehillim, and that's a time. Of course, these psukim have these kapitlach of Tehillim, and it talks about the Aniyim, the poor. It has to do with the fact that and giving the tithing, because that's when they gathered in the grains and so on. It's at the time of Asif. So so these are the songs. V'imchal Shabbos b'yechad mehem. If Shabbos falls on one of these, guess what? Yimoitu yidache. Which one do you push off? You push off the Yimoitu one. So Shabbos, we see you do not, you don't. Shabbos is that this one is pushed off for the Shabbos. Then because of that, you basically skip it. You skip the last one. Now, my time is up. It's 11:01. So basically, we see from here that that the Shabbos it doesn't have a song. What happens? What happens is you only do the Sukkos one, and you push off the Sukkos one, and you do the song for Shabbos.